Welcome to ACX University. I'm Hannah Wall, and today we're going beyond the booth, monetizing your voice. In today's episode, we'll look at ways that you can take your career to the next level with voiceover tools that you may not even know you already have. I'm joined by two VO pros today who are already earning profit outside the booth. To my immediate right is Andi Arndt. Since 2010, Andi has narrated over 200 audiobooks. Before embarking on her current career, she worked in public radio and taught acting and voice at the James Madison University School of Theater and Dance. Her audiobook narration has earned her multiple Audiophile Earphones Awards, Voice Arts Awards, and Audie Award nominations. She and her family live in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And further over is Carin Gilfry. Carin is a voice actor, opera singer, and creator and host of the children's web series Rosie's Place. She's narrated and produced nearly 100 audiobooks and has appeared in numerous national TV commercials, video games, and product videos. She owns and operates Gilfry Studios, her homemade studio with all the trimmings where she teaches classes and records voiceover projects and demos for voice actors in New York City. Thank you guys both for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
So before we get started, why don't you guys tell me a little bit more about yourselves so we learn about your audiobook career. Andi, we can start with you.
Well, my first audiobook was 7 years ago. Self-produced a book by an author who I had actually met in person because I thought, well, why not try an audiobook and make sure that I actually enjoyed the process before I hung out a shingle and said, I'm an audiobook narrator. And that was back before ACX, and so I actually submitted a single title directly to Audible in about the last 6 months that was even possible to do. I loved the process, and I started to do the in-person networking that it took to start making connections with publishers. And then with the boom in indie publishing, I have positioned myself in the market for turnkey audiobook production for indie, especially romance authors. Yeah.
Excellent. Carin, how about yourself?
I started doing audiobooks through ACX in 2012. And my first book was a book called Korean Youth Transitions, which sold exactly one copy.
Not a heavy seller.
But it was a really good book to start out on. And since then I've done a ton of audiobooks in the last 5 years. And yeah, I really love it. All from my home studio.
That's wonderful. And you're both full-time audiobook narrators?
More than full-time.
I narrate now about 1 or 2 audiobooks a month, and the rest of the time I spend doing more commercial voiceover and instructional videos, and I teach and stuff like that.
Excellent. So today we're discussing the ways you're using your audiobook skills beyond those many hours a day that you're spending in the booth, just to add to your income that you're already earning from audiobook narration. So I'd like to start by asking you about, some of the activities you're doing outside of the booth, like attending conferences. Are you attending narrator conferences or author conferences or fan conferences, and what are you getting out of it?
I'm attending all 3 of those types of conferences. I go to voiceover multi-genre conferences like VO Atlanta. I just went to VO Atlanta for the 3rd time this past March. And that's always really interesting to be reminded of the larger VO community beyond audiobooks with commercials and people coming over to VO Atlanta from other countries. There was a whole Spanish parallel conference happening in a different part of the hotel this year. It was really exciting to learn about. So just to be reminded of how audiobook narration fits into the larger profession is great. I'm going to be going to APAC, Audio Publishers Association Conference, later this month. And that's been a really, really important part of my building up my network of colleagues and clients. And just in the last couple of years, I've started to go to author conferences and fan conferences specifically for romance. And it's one thing to be a narrator in a room full of narrators and get what you can get out of that, great energy, ideas about running your business. But there's something great about being the only narrator in a room full of authors, too.
I'll bet.
That's awesome. I think conferences are fantastic. And actually, one of my favorite conferences that I've been to every year now for 3 years is Comic-Con in New York, which is kind of, not necessarily in the audiobook world, but it is kind of because, there are so many graphic novels now that are looking for narrators, and Audible has been at Comic-Con the past few years, and it's a great way to network, and it's really fun.
So you guys are networking. What else are you doing at conferences, and why is it valuable to building your brand outside of the booth?
I think I don't know, just being present and being around people who are creative it can be very inspiring and can kind of help you to think outside of the box a little bit. So not beyond networking, I think it's just inspiring.
For me, it's all about relationships. And I once heard this really great image of when you freelance, you're a gardener, not a hunter.
Okay.
And so you're not looking for that thing that you're going to like pick off. And, you're always just kind of dropping seeds. And you never know, 3 years later, you might walk back past where you dropped that seed and it's sprouted into something really beautiful. I take a really long view of that relationship building, and I think it shows when somebody is much more mercenary and just in it for what they can get out of it. I just like to meet people. My favorite question to ask is, tell me about a trip that you've taken or a trip that you're planning or whatever, and just get to know people as people. Because in our industry, we're telling stories, and the casting people actually can place us best sometimes by knowing a little bit more about where our genuine interests are, because I don't know about you, but I'm going to narrate with more interest and a different dynamic if I'm also really genuinely interested in the topic.
Yeah.
So,
Engaged in the material, of course.
And the relationships with authors and publishing companies is really the most important part of our business, because you have so many repeat clients or authors who want you to narrate books in their series, multiple books in their series, and then they have another series that comes out, or they recommend you to their author friend who has a series of books that are coming out soon. And so yeah, the relationship thing is most important.
Yeah, and to build on that too, so you have a relationship with an author and they come back to you with a series, and let's say you don't have room in your schedule to commit to a 5-book series at that time, but because you have relationships with narrator colleagues, you can, instead of just saying, oh, sorry, I can't, you're able to say, well, I can't, but I actually know who would be perfect for that.
Yeah.
And then refer them to somebody who's going to make them really happy.
Agreed.
So tell me a little bit how you're going about planting those seeds. And for someone who might be shy, who's watching, if you're a bit of a wallflower, you're attending a conference alone, how do you put yourself out there? How do you make those connections and without being forced or uncomfortable?
Bring business cards.
Good advice.
And I don't know, I think just if you attend a panel, for example, and somebody's speaking and they said something that really inspired you, come up and tell them that they did and who you are. And you have to kind of step out of your comfort zone if you are feeling shy, and just kind of do it.
No, that's a great idea.
It's called acting.
So you're acting at the conference, acting like maybe a more confident person.
Extrovert. I mean, people pay a lot of money to go to conferences, and you do. I mean, so book a room that you really feel comfortable in, so that when you're not doing the networking and you need to kind of replenish that energy, you feel comfortable. You feel like, okay, I'm ready to get back out there and do it again. About the business cards, I heard Sean Pratt was talking about, be careful with the business card, because when you give that business card, that's the end of that transaction. And I had never thought about it that way before, but that is so true.
Yeah.
So what would you give instead of a business card to make sure that conversation continues?
It's not that I wouldn't give a business card. I've got it at the ready if asked.
Okay.
I tend to wait until I'm asked for it, or if I can see that the conversation's wrapping up on its own, then yes, the business card. But I was in a networking situation here in New York last summer, talking with somebody, catching up on whatever, and we were interrupted by somebody who just, here's my business card. And it actually, the person hadn't done their homework enough to know that what the narrator is interested in narrating is not at all what this casting guy casts. It's a totally different, totally different genre. So he not only interrupted us and gave his card at an awkward time, but he hadn't done his homework.
Yeah.
So that's my advice is, there was one networking thing that I went to for the very first time, and I was really nervous not to put my foot in my mouth or anything. But the organizer of it was gracious enough to send all of us a list of who was going to be there. So the night before the event, I went on to Audible and I started looking up what people had done. And lo and behold, one person who was going to be there had narrated a book about the city in China where my daughter was born.
Small world.
So I knew I have that to talk
You can
about
make
with
that
him.
connection.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So research,
Doing
do
your
your
homework. Yeah.
totally do your
Okay.
homework. Who's going to be there? What have they done recently? Have they given an interview recently? It's like it's all right there.
Oh, that's excellent advice.
It's all good icebreaker stuff. And then also probably if you're in the middle of a conversation with somebody and you say like, hey, should I send you an email? Like, and you could take out your phone and send them an email immediately.
Right in the moment.
And then they have
Absolutely.
your contact info, like
Yeah.
dating. That's what we do when we are dating people.
It is so much like dating. And
much like
that
dating.
situation where somebody broke in, it was like I was talking to this person and this other person just came and started French kissing them without even like, it was a little awkward.
That's funny.
I can imagine that would be pretty awkward. Oh my gosh. So what's in your bag when you guys are going to conferences? Carin, we'll start with you.
Oh man, I don't know. It depends on what I'm doing at the conference. Sometimes I go and I promote my children's show, so then I wear my T-shirt and all my stuff. But I don't know. Besides my business cards,
Would you bring a reel or?
I don't think I would bring a reel because I feel like that's something that I wouldn't give that to somebody right away.
Okay.
I don't know. What's in your bag?
What's in your bag, Andi?
What's in your wallet? My business cards.
Yeah.
I just recently had a postcard made that on one side has my production company information. On the other side, it has some valuable information for authors about how the process works. And because I was trying to think what would make someone not throw my card away.
Yeah.
Because it's expensive to produce that in quantity.
Absolutely.
And so I really had to think, well, I've got this whole other side. What could I put there that would make somebody want to keep it? So that's
a great idea.
Yeah, one thing that I think about. In Atlanta, at RT, a bunch of the narrators all went together and had shirts designed so that wherever we went in the convention, it was pretty obvious that we were narrators.
And all together.
And all
As a
together,
group. Good branding.
co-branding.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. But no, I don't bring a reel either. I mean, those are digital now.
Yeah.
They're all on your profile online
never carry
or
a
on
CD.
your website.
Definitely not. It's a little dated.
No.
Well, and one other tip, so if you have an expensive piece to produce and you don't want to necessarily give it away, is I have actually offered someone my business card. If I'm on my last one, I say, would you mind taking a picture of it? And everyone's got a smartphone, everyone's got a camera in their pocket these days. And so I'll say, here, take a photo of this. And I'll take a photo of my business card. And that's a way that I can hang on to that last business card without losing it, or taking photos of other people's business cards. So then I've got it backed up to my cloud, and there's no way I'm ever going to lose it in the bottom of a bag. So it's an interesting idea too.
That's ninja.
Yeah. So Andi, at Romantic Times, I believe you were also a speaker. You were a panelist on a panel about audiobooks. Now, how did you get that opportunity?
You have to, if you want to be a speaker at any conference, you have to remember that these things are being, like the 2018 RT convention is being planned right now. So, it's not like, oh, that's next week. I think I'll go try to be a speaker at that. You need to back up at least 9 months out and think, how can I support what they're trying to do? What is their focus? Who is their audience? And is there something that I have to offer that is of value to them? So the group of narrators who do romance, we all got together on, I think, 6 program proposals that we sent to Romantic Times, and 4 of them were accepted, which is pretty great.
What's that pitching process like?
They have a form that you need to fill out and a deadline, and they have specific questions they want answered. And so, you want to craft a proposal that appeals to what they're trying to put together as this humongous event with thousands of romance fans every year.
How did you decide what you wanted to talk about, what panels you were going to give, who you were going to tap on as guest speakers? Like, how did you come up with these concepts to then pitch?
Through group discussion on Facebook in a small group, we thought of fan events, author events, general interest events, and pitched them to the organizers. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So any tips for, what to write, what to include in your submission to make sure that you get a yes?
Just know the audience. The more you know about the event and the audience for that event, the stronger your proposal is going to be. It's the old "don't tell me about your grass seed, tell me about my lawn" thing. Like, it's not about what I'm going to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I'm going to get out of it. That's why I'm proposing it. What are they going to get out of it?
Okay.
Yeah.
So back to that doing your homework idea.
Do your homework. Yeah, that's like if I don't have it on my wall, but if I had like a big sign on my wall that I would want to like also send to other people who I feel like need to see this every day. Pay attention.
Absolutely. That's good advice.
Let's take a break from the action and check in on ACX's Andrew Gallagher and his QA Corner.
Hi, I'm Andrew Gallagher. I'm the QA Supervisor and Production Evangelist for ACX. Welcome to the QA Corner, where we take a quick look at the little details you've got to get right before you submit your audiobook for ACX QA review. Today, we're going to take a look at opening and closing credits. There's three things you should include, and you should only include in the opening credits, which is the title of the book, the author, and the narrator. Most opening credits follow the structure of title of the audiobook, written by the author, narrated by the narrator. For example, Huckleberry Finn, written by Mark Twain, narrated by Brian Blazek. For the closing credits, at minimum, you should say the end. Saying just the end is fine, though some like to include a thank you for listening note, as well as any closing information the rights holder may want to include. At minimum, for the closing credits, you should say the end. It's fine if you say the end, though you can include a thank you for listening note or other closing information the rights holder may want you to include. The script with the credits is on the title production page on acx.com. If you're still unsure of what to say, you should connect with the rights holder and they can help you out, and they can also make sure that the credits you're announcing match the cover art. Thanks for watching. Join me next time when we take a quick look at the little details you've got to get right before you consider your audiobook production complete.
So another way to get involved with your community, Carin, I know you are coaching for production and home studio building, which is another great way to monetize your VO skills. So how did you get started teaching?
Yeah, so I pretty soon after I started doing audiobooks, maybe like a year after, I had so many friends who were really interested in becoming narrators. I'm friends with a lot of actors and singers and whatnot, and so they all wanted to know how to get started. And I was spending so much time on the phone explaining to them, like, okay, well, so you have to build a home studio, and this is what you need. And so I first did like a little like web conference thing with 10 of my friends on Google Chat. And that went really well. And so I decided to start teaching classes specifically in how to get started building your home studio, because that was something that I'd only been narrating audiobooks for a year. So I didn't feel like I was, really skilled enough to teach someone else how to do that really well. But one thing that I did know how to do was how to get started and in this industry. So I started teaching classes that way. And then I moved into more of the commercial world, and now I teach classes on how to get started with your home studio that way, because there are specific things that you need to have in your home studio, like a phone patch, capability that are different from audiobooks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
how did you know you were, at that level that you were ready to share that skill?
I don't know. I think that as I started telling more and more people how to do it, and people started asking me, and I had the answers, I kind of just knew that I could teach them at least a little bit. Mm-hmm. And now that I've been doing it a long time, one amazing thing about being an audiobook narrator and producer is that you spend a lot of time with your recording software. You spend a lot of time in the booth. It's a lot more time than somebody who records a 15-second commercial from their home studio. So I feel like my audio engineering chops are pretty good at this point because I've spent thousands of hours doing it.
I'd say.
Yeah. But one way that I started getting better is I started producing demos for people. And audiobook demos are, they're pretty standard. There's no music underneath. It's pretty straightforward. But commercial demos and animation demos and things like that, they take a lot more because it's all produced with music and sound effects. And so that really kind of brought my audio engineering to the next level, which is fun.
So you talked about how you were, finding your students among your friends, but how are you going out and finding students now? Are you still waiting for people to come into you, or do you proactively market yourself?
Yeah, I am a part of a lot of Facebook groups for voice actors and for just straight actors in New York City. I have a studio website. I have my own personal website, and usually people come to me. I don't really have to market very much. If I'm going to be doing a series of classes over the weekend, I will create like a class flyer and I'll put it up in New York City actor Facebook groups and in some of these voiceover Facebook groups, and people will come because a lot of the industry is still, you go to a brick and mortar studio, it's not in your home studio. So people are very interested now in this new wave of home studios, and so that's been good.
So you're teaching primarily in person, or are you doing
I'm
web
teaching
sessions as well?
primarily in person.
Okay.
I haven't done a web session in a long time because it always just gets, it's hard to do.
Definitely,
It's hard
especially
to coordinate.
in construction. Yeah,
right.
definitely.
Especially when you have 15 people in different time zones and everybody has to dial in at the same time, and then you're trying to screen share and all this stuff. So in person is easier.
Okay, all right. And Andi, you're just starting to get back into coaching as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I taught acting and voice at the university level for 12 years and as a part-timer. And at the same time, I was getting into my own voiceover work and then audiobook narration work. And when I left in 2011, I think May of 2011 I finished teaching my last class. And it was bittersweet because I loved the time in the classroom with the students, but I didn't love the prep and the grading. And it seems like universities are always changing the grading matrix where you log in and all that stuff. I thought, I really feel kind of like being selfish for a while and just doing my thing.
So I think the question that I think is going to be on a lot of folks' minds is, are you charging for your lessons, and how do you decide how much to charge?
Yes. Yes. How do I decide how much to charge? When it comes to Linkletter voice coaching, there's actually a community of teachers that I trained with, and they let me know what the going rate is in that community, so that community sort of sets the rate there. With webinars, it's more a matter of, is this to my colleagues or is this to somebody who's investing in getting their business up and running? I think you get what you pay for. Whenever I have somebody, maybe a former student, come to me and say, hey, I found somebody who's going to do my voiceover demo for $75. And I go, are you doing any coaching first? Or you just, no, they're just going to have the demo. I go,
You're like, are they good at post-production?
yeah, or because the people that I did because I have a commercial demo and narration demo, they would not do the demo until they had gotten to know me as a performer and vetted me, because their name's going out on that demo too. Mm-hmm. There's a great voiceover school in San Francisco that Elaine Clark runs, and when you look at her price list, it doesn't say price, it says investment. And that's it. If you want to open a McDonald's, it's a $90,000 franchise license. If you want to open a home studio, there are things that you should invest in because you're expecting this to be a legitimate career and income. And so, like if you want to make full-time pay, you got to put in full-time work and think of it.
And as a voice actor, your demo is your headshot essentially for a regular actor. So it needs to be professionally done. That said, though, when you join these online audition sites, you have to have something. And if you're just starting out, don't pay someone $700 or $1,000 to make a commercial demo for you, or audiobook demos. Please don't pay that much to make an audiobook demo when you don't have any experience, because when you're going to spend that money, and then in a year from now you're going to be so much better and you're going to have to make another demo. So finding a friend who will charge you $75 so that you have something, knowing that you're going to replace that in a few months when you get better, or knowing that you'll replace that in a year when you start to work more and you have more money to pay for a real professional demo, I think is okay. But don't get swindled.
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay. And as you're thinking about the number, I am really great at QuickBooks, and I think I can put together a webinar for my peers on QuickBooks. How do I arrive at the number that I want to charge for folks attending my class?
I have I feel like I have a really weird way that I have come to the number that I charge, because I come from the opera singing world, where you take a lesson in New York City and it can be $280 for an hour, which is a lot of money. I usually say my classes are $50 for a 2-hour class, but if I give a friend discount, and then also I kind of say, if you can't pay $50 for whatever reason, because we're all struggling actors, pay what you can. And I say the same for my coachings also, especially if it's friends, pay what you can, and I'll give you my information. And that's another community building thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's my
Andi, do you have a
idea.
way you get to your magic number?
I ask other people who are doing the same kind of coaching.
Okay.
Because
So
that's
going back out to that network.
Then, the great thing about a network is when you have a network of solid relationships, you can ask the money questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yes, I ask people who are teaching similar things what they feel is fair, and then I know I'm in line with sort of community standards. Yeah.
Excellent. So I want to go back to the idea of coaching for a minute. So how are you guys structuring your lessons and deciding what to teach?
How do I begin? Like I said earlier, I find that I have become pretty good at audio engineering and helping people set up their home studios and kind of navigating this new world of online auditions and home studios and working from home. So that's primarily what I teach. I also love audiobooks and commercial voiceover. So when I'm doing demos for people, I coach them during the demo session. Sometimes we'll have a coaching session beforehand, because there is a very specific way that commercial copy is read. It's a little bit affected, but also natural and conversational. And audiobooks definitely have a style, and depending on what genre of audiobook you're doing, there's a specific style. And for people who haven't listened to a lot of audiobooks, it's hard for them to have that in their head. So yeah, so I found that I teach what I know that I am good at, and that's most helpful for anyone taking lessons.
And as for me, I have, as far as to my colleagues, found myself being a resource for behind the scenes business practices.
Oh yeah? Tell me more.
Yes. So I've done a webinar for the Audio Publishers Association with fellow narrator Tom Deere. We did a great webinar that I've had a lot of good feedback on, called Give Yourself a Raise, Time Management for Audiobook Narrators, because one of the ways that you can increase your earnings is to increase your efficiency.
Sure.
And so we talked about all the different ways that we make better use of our billable time so that we can give ourselves a raise. So that's very much a business consideration, not really a performance consideration, although I can do performance coaching. And I'm trained as a Linklater voice coach, so I can do that with people, although that's hard. You can't do that over the web because you need to be able to put your hands on someone and say, why is this so tense? And Sunday night, this coming Sunday night, I'm going to be walking a few people, just a very small group of people, through a webinar format. So wish me luck through my accounting software that I use,
Okay.
because I've had people say, "Wow, that looks like really great accounting software," but I'm scared. I'm scared. So
So you're just responding to what folks are coming to you for help with,
Yes,
and creating
yeah.
lessons around that.
yeah. Because to me, that makes the most sense rather than me insisting I'm going to teach this. It's like if one person asked me how I do something, then I put it out on the Facebook group and say, is anyone else interested in having me walk you through this thing? And there were a cluster of people who were, so we set up a webinar.
That's exactly
that's
what I
it.
do as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Exactly the same.
Yep. Listen to where people want you.
That's so interesting. And it's great that the community is so receptive that you can just have a great idea, put it out there, and you're getting responses right away. And you're able to then take that new idea and turn it into a class that becomes a coachable and profitable opportunity. Excellent.
Absolutely. And I've also started to offer myself to authors when they go on writers' retreats to Skype in and talk about audiobooks.
That's amazing. That's the panelist idea all over again. Okay, cool. So those are some great entry-level ideas. But I want to talk about something a little bit more complicated. Andi, we talked in your bio about some of the awards that you have been nominated for and won. So those nominations, did you submit for yourself? Have they benefited you?
So the two main awards programs that I've participated in are the Audio Awards and the Voice Arts Awards, which is run by Society of Voice Arts and Sciences out in Los Angeles. I'm a 3-time Audi nominee, but only one of those 3 did I actually know it was being submitted, and it was an ACX title. I worked with the author. When it was time to submit for these awards programs, I sent an email out to the indie romance authors that I've produced for, explaining the difference between those two programs because they are very different, and what the authors could do at that point should they choose to submit for consideration. And so I knew that one of them was going to be submitted, but the other 2 out of the 3, it was up to the publisher, and I really didn't have anything to do with that. So as far as what a narrator can do, when it comes to the Audis, you can encourage your authors to consider submitting you. But on the publisher side, just do your best work. I mean, just, and maybe you'll get, there's so many submissions for so few spots. There's a lot of great work that gets overlooked every year just by necessity. There's not enough room. The Voice Arts Awards, to me, because it's a newer program, and I've seen people in the narration community kind of go, should I do that? It's growing. It was a really fun party last November. I went out for it. I was nominated for 2 different things. I think that's a really good thing to be aware of and to consider submitting for, because I think narrators can submit without the author. I asked my authors to choose to submit or not, just because I thought, my gosh, if like 10 of them decide to do it, that's a lot of entry fee for me. So I left it up to them, and they paid the entry fee.
Do you find that having won these awards has given you additional credibility or affected the rate you charge? What do you get out of earning these awards?
Yes, my price went up, and yes, my profile went up.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit more about for someone who's new, looking at awards as a next step for enhancing their career. Where do you even start? How do you submit for these awards?
You first look at the titles that you've produced, and I would guess that you would want to look at titles that have sold well and gotten good reviews.
That's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're doing, what was it? Korean students in transition, and it sold one
Korean
copy.
youth transitions.
And
so it's a great book, everyone.
Absolutely.
You should really get it.
I think that you'd probably want to really be pretty hard-nosed and look at what do I have, and which are the top titles, because the rights holder needs to be a part of the submission process.
Okay.
So are you in touch with the rights holder? Because if it was through a publisher, then I wouldn't encourage spending a whole lot of time on that. That's kind of out of your control. But if through ACX you are in touch with the rights holder and you've got a relationship with them where they seem to be, I've got some authors who are amazing promoters of their own work. They've got really active fan groups. They've got fantastic marketing campaigns. I know they have the staff to support these campaigns. Then that's a pretty good guess for they might want to know about this opportunity.
Sure.
I'm helping them. I'm actually helping them promote their book because, of course, if something gets a nomination, then they can tweet about that. They can post about that. They can make a postcard about it and submit it all over the place. So you go to sovas.org, and I think their submissions for this year, the awards would be in November, they're already accepting submissions. And you have to fill out their form and you make a payment.
So in terms of submission fees, are we talking tens, hundreds, thousands?
Hundreds.
Hundreds, okay. And then you're also providing a copy of the audiobook?
A link.
A link, okay. And what are some dates that you should be aware of in terms of publication? You can't just pull from your whole catalog and say, this year I want to submit.
Yeah, go to sovas.org
Okay.
and look at the Voice Arts Awards submission guidelines, and it'll tell you titles published between this date and this date are eligible, and you go from there. And you need the cover art, high quality cover art, so that when they make the slide and project it and in front of the audience, you're not the one that's blurred out, and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, if we're talking hundreds of dollars, how are you calculating the value that this adds to your career?
Those two, the Audies and the Voice Arts Awards, have a good enough profile, a high enough profile, especially the Audie Awards. But the Voice Arts Awards added really highly esteemed judges to judge the audiobook category last year. The tip-top people in the industry listening to those submissions, which to me made such a huge difference. It's then I got a little nervous. He's listening, she's listening. It means something. I know that there are awards programs out there in the world that are basically buy yourself a trophy. These are not that.
Sure.
There's an aspect of it that is don't you want to test your work against other people? That it takes a certain amount of belief in what you're producing to want to put it out there and see how it goes stacked up against other people's work.
And how did you know that you were at that point that you felt brave enough to do it?
Reviews, ratings.
And probably the titles that you're narrating as well.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. I am narrating for some of the top authors working in contemporary romance. They are smart and funny and incredible business women. And I am inspired by the way they run their business, not just the way they write their books.
What are some ways that folks can start showing up, and what are some of the ways to make those, to kind of earn your way into the business?
You have to just do it every day, really. I want to say that there's a magic bullet, but really you have to just do it every day. You have to wake up and this has to be your job, and part of that job is being on these social media platforms and going to conferences and really marketing yourself. But you have to really just decide, this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to wake up at whatever time and do it all day, and then it's going to be done. I think that it's so important to market yourself to people who are not necessarily authors or rights holders or publishers, but just, things that are outside of what you do. For example, I had this situation once where I accidentally locked myself in a hotel closet in New York City while I was narrating an audiobook. And my computer was outside the door, so I had this whole long recording of me locked in the closet, and I submitted it to This American Life. And I sent them a story pitch. And they ended up turning my story into a fully produced opera on the stage of BAM. And that has It was really great. And through that, a lot of people know who I am from that episode of This American Life.
I mean, and that could have been one of your most humiliating
Right.
moments.
And it was, but also,
But you also knew that there was something
moments.
pretty funny here,
Right.
and so you reached out to NPR. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And so you can do things like that. There was an article about me featured in Classical Singer magazine because I'm an opera singer and an audiobook narrator and voice actor. And so the people from I actually knew a writer who wrote for Classical Singer sometimes, and we connected through Facebook, and she said that she might want to write an article about me, and so we did that. But that was something also that you kind of have to like go out and get it. Things don't always just fall in your lap. You have to kind of make yourself, you have to be your own self promoter.
Yeah, no one's going to do it for you.
No one's going to do it for you. Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you feel like you want to pitch something to NPR, do it.
Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, Andi and Carin, for joining us. Andi, where can folks find you after the session?
You can find me on Facebook at Andi Arndt Narrator.
Excellent. And Carin, where can we find you?
I have a Facebook, Carin Gilfry. It's my professional page. My website is caringilfry.com. And I also have a studio webpage, gilfrystudios.com.
Excellent. Thank you both for being here. We'll see you next time.